Okay, thank you for being here today. I want to be mindful about everyone's time. So I'm going to start with the presentation. This recording will be available at the Student Association website, Academic Support Program later. If you want to review it again, as per the students who are joining us today, aiming to take part of the end of the semester knowledge contest, it's very important to know that participation will count towards you staying for the whole activity. So probably if you left before, we are not going to be able to include that as your participation of our activities. Today we are going to be navigating the assessment of the student learning policy, and this might not be a very well-known policy because most of the time students are not very aware about the college policies, but especially it's true because many times you don't know about these policies until you really need these policies to solve your academic concerns and issues. So today I'm going to try to explain this policy and try to provide you with some insight and tips to navigate with ease and to make your educational journey much better. At the Student Association of George Brown College, we are located on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and other indigenous people who have lived here over time. We are fortunate to have the opportunity to learn, work, grow, and live in the community, sharing the responsibility to honor and protect this land as treaty people and to live peacefully with each other. Okay, this is a quick overview about what we're going to be covering in today's presentation. So the assessment of the student policy has some general principles. We're going to be talking about grading and assessment, assessment taken from digital learning materials, accommodations and deferrals, supplemental assessment, assessment and record keeping, students' responsibilities, and how's the process? How will be the procedure to request a reassessment of your student's work? This policy, the assessment of the student learning policy, it follows some principles. The primary purpose is to assess the student learning across different across the college, and it is allowed for each student to demonstrate your progress in achieving your learning outcomes. This is very important to note because most of the time when you are thinking about your learning expectations, your learning outcomes, you never get to really realize that there's a whole policy that stand there for you and for you to have access to a quality education. Equitable access is another of the college commitments to assess students' learning and work. It should provide a fair and transparent space, ensuring students are treated all respectfully and impartially. This also includes students who require academic accommodations according with the college policies and regulation, and as well as provincial legislation. Another of the purposes of this policy is to provide assessing students' learning across the college, where you can demonstrate your progress in the manner you have in achieving your learning outcomes. Innovation is another of the principles of this policy because the college is committed to equitable assessment of students that is fair, transparent, and that ensures the treatment is respectfully and there is innovation always in the way the learning is being taught and in the way students are being assessed. As you may know, because probably you are a second year student, you have been for a while, or even if this is your first year here, a student at George Brown College, there is a course outline that provides you with the information of the types of assessment that you are going to be having to complete during the semester, the weight of each assessment, the dates. So for each program, all the students should be provided with a course outline that describes the means of evaluation that will be used in this course. This course outline is your guide to go to all your assessment, tests, exams, everything in a timely manner and to know exactly what your professor is expecting from you. One of the changes that has been introduced within the recent assessment of student learning updates is the word types. So right now, the assessment of the student learning policy identifies the types of assessment that could be included within a course. Some of those assessments could be skills demonstration and performance, case study and problem-based learning situations, data analysis and interpretation, project-based assignments, active participation, tests, quiz, exam presentations, projects, models, products, prototypes, portfolios, reflective papers, journals, comments, responses papers, research report or essays, and of course annotate bibliography, research and definitions. So these are some and majority of the types of assessment that has been included within this policy. It is important to know that at any time you could receive an online that informs you about a certain type of assessment, right? Initially, at the beginning of the semester, you are going to be always provided with the course online. For some programs, it is called syllabus. It depends on the center you are, but usually the name that you are going to find within your Brightspace is course outline. In this document, you are going to also find information about whether any of these or all the assignments, projects, or examinations are mandatory for obtaining a passing grade in the course. Also, the relative weighting of each assessment. You know, sometimes you have assessment that may worth 10%, some others that worth 20%, 30%, 25%. So it's very important to know the difference between each one of them and the approximate date for each assessment. These marks approximate because certain things are not written in stone. You know, sometimes things could happen, and perhaps if you have a test tomorrow, but the college runs out of power or electricity and you cannot take this test, you should be provided with another day to take this form of examination. The learning outcomes are always listed there, and it's basically what is expected for you to learn, what you should achieve, and what kind of outcome learning you should be demonstrating. This is also important because when you want to request a reassessment of your work or you want to appeal for a grade, you will need to go back to that learning outcome to know if you really get to fulfill all the requirements within an assessment or within an assignment to pass or not a grade. Variety and inclusion is something also important within the assessment of the students' learning because the students should be evaluated using different kinds of assessment methods that are scheduled throughout the term. It's not something like you have just one assessment during the term or two or three. It should be divided within the term in a manner that allows you to gather feedback from your professor, but also to demonstrate your learning. And some of these principles to have this assessment are inclusion, access, and engagement. So if a course does not include different assessment methods throughout the term, it should be communicated to the students within the course outline. Unannounced assessments that are not included within the course outline cannot be used to provide calculation of the final course grade. It could be used to provide formative feedback. Let's say that today during your lecture, your professor come with a test like a pop quiz, surprise test. They could use this as a mean to help to provide formative feedback and learning, but this cannot contribute to your final grades because if this is not contemplated within your course outline, it shouldn't be contemplated either as a part of your grades. Participation may count for maximum 10% of the final grade. And this is important because we have heard many times students that are not really maybe taking part of the classes, maybe they are not even attending, and that's important. Even though grades cannot be assigned for attendance, participation could have an assignment within your course outline. So if perhaps your professor requires you to participate within class in at least one discussion or to be part of group assignments within the class that are going to be great, it's important for you to know that after, if you did not take part of these spaces, you are not going to be able to appeal or to request reassessment of spaces were meant to create that dynamic within the students to improve their knowledge and learning. And also because you can only request the reassessment of assignments that were minimum 20%. So it's also important that you are not going to be able to appeal ever participation within the class. Some courses require students to be present for skills demonstration or foundational learning and skills demonstration. So it's very key to know that health and safety of students, the public, vulnerable population, and the overall community partners is very important to be for you to be able to receive the course credit. So when this happens, your professor should communicate with you within the course outline, and it must be directly linked to one or more learning outcomes. This is true, for instance, for the students within the health science program or within any other program that requires some skills demonstration that involves other perhaps students, public, or other partnership communities, because sometimes you will need to get to demonstrate your learning and your knowledge in other educational and practice environments. Bonus marks may only be included in the assessment of the course outline, and it could only account for no more than 3% of the course final grades. So this also has to be available for all the students in a course. Sometimes the students at the end of the semester are lacking 1 to 3% to pass the grade, and they don't know that they might be able to request some options if within your course outline it is available the bonus marks. Most of the time, your professors are going to inform to you first that there is an option available for you throughout the semester. However, it's not always granted to everybody, and you need to be clear about this. It's not like mandatory for your faculty to provide you or allow you with this option if they have not contemplated so within the outline. Grades indicates the student status within the course or the program, right? Many times you might have heard about someone saying, I am under academic probation, I have an academic call, I have received the dean's letter, or I have to wait until the promotion committee meets to know if I'm going to be moving forward within the program or not. All of these are different status that a student could have depending on their academic performance, right? If you are doing very well and if you are having very good grades, probably you are going to receive the Dean's List letter every semester. This is a recognition from the deans for those students who are achieving a good academic performance and overall GPA. The promotion committee meets to evaluate students who are struggling or who have not achieved the expected learning goals to determine if could be durable or not for them to continue within the program. The academic probation usually occurs when a student has failed a course, depending on the program, one or more times, or when you have failed three or more courses. So some programs have some more specific requirements that as in request students to have a minimum GPA or to pass certain courses with a minimum grade. So this is important, and this is something that you are going to find within your course online. There you are always going to find what kind of learning outcomes do you have, the type, dates, and number of assignments and assessments, any books that you are going to be using during the term, any opportunities for you to amend, or maybe if there's any penalty for late submissions, if there are going to be any opportunities to make up assignments or not. So it's very key for everybody since the beginning of the semester to read the course online and be very aware about anything that could impact your academic journey during the semester. As per your faculty, they must have returned grade assessment to the students representing no less than 30% of the final grade prior to the course date for withdrawal without academic penalty. So for this in October, if any of you is enrolled in a 7 weeks program, tomorrow I think will be the last day to withdraw without academic penalty. For the 15 weeks course, it will be around beginning of November. I don't have the exact date right now. I'm going to check it later. But it's very key that you know that you have to receive those grades from your professor, because if you don't know if you are in good standing in your program, or if you don't know if you are going to be able to make it to the end of the semester after evaluating the assessment and assignments that you have pending, you need to take decisions, right? So if you already know that you are not going to pass, that you are failing this course, and that perhaps withdrawing and taking this course again in the next semester might be a better option for you, you will need to have all that information at hand. Either way, it's always recommended to address your concerns with your program coordinator. They are going to be able to let you know what will be the best option for you and your options, any other possibility that you could take before withdrawing from the course. Um, Faculty has also to provide and return grades assessment and posted all these grades on the college learning management system, which for you will be Brightspace, representing no less than the 50% of all assessments in the course to students prior to the final assessment course, right? So if you are getting to the end of the semester and you don't have your grades, your professor has not sent you a single mark or grades in the whole semester, you need to communicate with them and you need to ask them to provide you with the feedback and with your grades, because if you don't have enough marks to pass this grades, even though if you pass with full marks the final grade, you are going to be failing, right? So it's very important for you to know where you are, if you are going to be have the chance to pass or not a course, because if you miss the deadline to withdraw a course without academic penalty, you are going to receive a F immediately, even if you withdraw the course at the end of the semester. Any changes to assessment during the course or the weighting of this assessment should be avoided. We have heard before from students things like, my professor has changed the course outline 2 or 3 times or several times. Before they told us that this test will worth 20%, but then now are saying that it worth 30%, 35%, and now that puts me in a bad standing within the course. So anytime if you perceive that the changes your professor is making is impacting you in a negative manner, you can always contact our program and we can help you to navigate that and try to address these concerns with the academic department and with your associate team. As per review and assessment, The provider request is made within a reasonable time after the notification of a mark. So every student has the right to review any written assessment or examination for which they have received a mark. Uh, we always recommend for to anybody every time that you are receiving a grade, that you are receiving your marks, if you have doubts, if you think or perceive is unfair, if you perceive that you did better, or if you are finding that the grade you're receiving did not really reflect your job, your work, the effort that you have been doing, and that you might want to review any of these assessments, it's important to know to do that as soon as you can, because we have seen many times students that has an issue at the beginning of the semester, and just getting to the end when they find themselves failing a grade, they ask about these situations or they request for support. So don't wait until the end of the semester to address any of these concerns about assessments or reviewing of assessment with your faculty, because you are going to lose opportunities to solve this in a timely manner. There's an additional clause included within the review and updated assessment of a student learning policy, that it says that your faculty will post grades on the college learning managed system, that's Brightspace, and return grades assessment to students within 2 weeks, that's around 10 business days of their submission by the student. So if you submit something at the beginning of the semester, let's say September 5th, 7th, 8th, and until today you haven't received the marks for those assignments, or you haven't received marks for a test or any other, at this time you should have already have it. So it's important for you to know that your professor has 10 business days to provide you with these grades in Brightspace, so you have the opportunity to evaluate and to know if these grades are accurate, or if you might need to request a reassessment of your work. If your faculty for any reason is unable to post the assessment grade within the 2 weeks period, they must communicate the change to the students by posting on Brightspace or using the George Brown College email account. And finally, at least 3% of the final grades must be available to students prior to the day for withdrawal from the course without academic penalty. So let's say for any student that at this time is taking a 7 weeks course, all of these, at least 3% of their grades must be available for them. For any student in a 15 weeks course, that will be, just give me a second. Um, that will be, oh my gosh. That will be November 8th. That will be the last day for any student within a 15 weeks course to withdraw from a course or the entire program without academic penalty. That means you could withdraw by November 8th and you are not going to receive a F grade, right? But you are not going to receive a refund. You are not going to receive back the money that you already paid, because this is the only option for you to receive a partial refund was September 16. After that date, there's not option for refunds. Midterm grades for students registered in post-secondary, postgraduate, and degree courses will receive a midterm grade, which provide the feedback on your academic performance to that date. So for around week 7, 8, you should have received feedback from your professor, knowing how you're doing, how's your academic performance today, and if there's any improvement needs. And this is also important. No individual assessment can make up more than 30% of the final grade. So if your professor is providing you with an all course outline that states that you have an assignment worth in 50% of your final grade, you need to know that that's not an option, and that it needs to be approved by the associate dean and communicate to the students, right? Because you need to know why half of your marks are going to go count towards just one assignment. So this is also important. Usually professors at the very beginning of each semester explain to students the course outline and any remarks that are important to know. But you can also ask if you have questions or doubts, or if you don't know why you are being assessed in certain way. Okay, so as per the online learning, the assessment taken from digital learning materials, students must be informed when published digital tests resources are to be used for an assessment, and if those are included within their course material fees. Some students in the past has struggled with some course materials that has been required to be purchased for the students after they have started the course or the semester. So it's very key to know that when you are struggling with this, your professor has always have to provide you with information about any digital textbooks resource that are going to be used, and if your fees already includes those course materials. Any assessment taken directly from digital learning materials should be consistent with the college academic policies and values. So, just an example, your professor could not just suddenly ask you to pay for a platform or for an online resource that is not related to the academic policies and values and to the course online and expected learning outcomes. For students requiring accessible learning services and accommodation, any form of assessment that needs to be modified, alternate, or change to reduce barriers for student success should be communicated through the accessible learning services department. All the students who need accommodation, they're always first registered with the accessible learning services department. If you perceive that you might need accommodation and you address this with your professor most likely is going to ask you to go to the ALS department and request formal accommodations, because you will need to go through certain process for an accessibility consultant to be able to evaluate your situation and to know what kind of accommodation could be provided and available for you. We had at the beginning of the semester a workshop about the accessible learning services and how to request accommodations. If you want to check that information later, it will be available at our website. And also, if you have any question or you want to know more about the accessible learning services, you can send an email to the ALS register at georgebrown.ca. Important to know, any the accommodations are not meant to change course or program outcomes. That means that the program outcome will be the same. What it changed is the way you are going to approach and address the different assignments that you have to complete during the semester. There's also another option to accommodations for religious observation. So if at any time you believe that you need accommodations because there are religious beliefs and practice that you as a member of the community want to take for you, for yourself, for your family, or in any other situation. These are available whenever it's possible, and it needs to be requested at least 2 weeks prior to the required accommodation. So if you know that from 2 weeks from now you will have a religious celebration and you won't be able to submit an assignment, you need to communicate this to your faculty and request the accommodation based on that. Communication with the faculty is always the main purpose and the main advice that we give to the students, because with them you are going to be able to solve your situations and your issues in a more expedited way. So if you wait until the very day that you need to be absent, or if you wait until it's late for you to communicate this to your faculty, probably you are not going to have many options to make tests later or to have other opportunities in the future. Okay, this is one of the parts that are very important about the assessment of the student learning policy, and it is the supplemental assessment. The supplemental assessment is a privilege and is not a right. Super important. It may be granted by your professor on an individual basis to students who have failed a course after completing the entire course and attempting the final assessment. So if by the end of this year you find yourself that you failed this course, you can still request a supplemental assessment to your faculty, but they are going to grant you with that opportunity only based on your academic performance. So this is an example. Let's say that you miss a lot of classes during the semester and you never participate and your academic performance was not very well and you were having a lot of issues during the semester to keep on track with your academics and you request a supplemental assessment and your professor says no, I cannot give you that opportunity. There's not other option like to appeal this because they have the educational freedom to determine to who they are going to grant with this privilege. So one of the recommendation that we always give to students is to, even though if you are having a struggle, if you are having problems and you are struggling to keep on track with your academics, talk to your professor. It's always a better option to keep them update on your situation rather to wait for the end of the semester for a miracle. Many times a student has contacted us asking for grace marks or for free marks, which is something that we cannot do. Actually, nobody can do that. It's only up to your faculty to allow you perhaps to submit an additional assessment or assignment, or perhaps it's only up to your faculty if they can allow you to retake a test or to extend the time. So it's very important to know that this will be related to your academic performance, to your communication with your professor, and this is also important for eventually if you need to appeal for a grade, because if you had not communicated timely with your faculty, with your professor, you are not going to be able to request a academic appeal on the stage two. The minimum passing grade for the supplemental assessment, the supplemental assessment is only permitted if the student has achieved the minimum passing grade. It's not like you already passed the grade, but you want some extra marks to just, uh, increase your GPA. That's not an option. You can only request a supplemental assessment if you are failing the course, and you are going to receive only the marks that will allow you to pass the grade. So if perhaps you are 6% away from passing, even if your professor grants you with a supplemental assessment, you are not going to receive more than 6%. Um, and you can only be granted with one supplemental assessment for each individual course, for an individual course. So you cannot request like several supplemental assessment every time that you're struggling or failing a course. Your faculty should maintain accurate records of the student assessment for at least 3 years after the course completion, or submit this to the academic department. They will also communicate these results of the assessment to the student. Usually you receive this information through Brightspace, but we have also heard that sometimes you are not having your marks on time on the platform, and that many times even at the end of the semester, after the semester has ended, you are not receiving like the feedback and grades in Brightspace, and just you have in Studview the final grades. So that's also related to what we discussed before, right? You faculty should be providing you with timely feedback. They have to be providing you with the grades at least 10 business days after the submission of your work, because if you don't know anything about your grades, if you don't have any clue about how you're doing, or if you're doing good or bad, and if you fail this course, that would mean that you won't have you wouldn't have the opportunity to do something timely before the end of the semester, and perhaps you could be failing the course without the opportunity to appeal for them. So it's very important every time that you're struggling with your faculty because they are not giving you your grades and marks timely, you can communicate with us and we could try to address that with the academic department and with your faculty as well. Same as with your faculty, students has responsibilities, right? You are responsible to know and meet the assessment requirements in each course, including how the work is to be submitted. Because hundreds of times we have heard things like, oh, I have an issue with the platform, I have an issue with Brightspace, and I couldn't submit my assignment through the platform, but I sent it to through email to my professor. But let's say that the file it was way too big and couldn't make it to your professor's email. That would mean that you did not submit your assignment on time, and that's not your faculty fault, right? So it's very important to know that if the submission is through Brightspace, you have to use Brightspace to submit your assignments. We have heard several times from students things like, the deadline to submit the assignment was yesterday at midnight, and I submit my assignment at 11:59, and it couldn't work. It didn't work when I submitted because I don't know, maybe the time already passed or things could happen. That's not your professor's fault, right? So it's very important for you to try to submit your assignments timely, and if you have any issue, report that immediately. If you're having an issue with your Brightspace, if you're having an issue with your platforms, you have to report to your professor. You cannot wait until the next Monday to talk to them, or you cannot wait until the next class because you could miss the opportunity to submit an assignment. And also to guarantee fairness to everybody. It will not be fair if everybody else submit the assignment on time and you have an issue and you did not communicate to anybody or to your professor, and then just wait till the next week when you have class and you are expecting your professor to receive your assignment and to mark that same as your other classmates. So I think it's very important to everybody to be aware that fairness is important and it's something that happens in both ways. It's not just unidirectional from your professor to you, it's also from you to your faculty and to your classmates. As I mentioned, it's super important, and I cannot stress this more, that if you are having a struggle and you cannot submit an assignment, you cannot meet a deadline due to extenuating circumstances because you were sick, because you have an accident, because you're facing an eviction, because you have anything that could happen, you need to communicate to your professor. Send an email. I have in this situation, I cannot really submit my assignment today. Please allow me more time. I'm going to provide you with all the supports of what is happening because that's also very important. You have to provide appropriate documentation to demonstrate those extenuating circumstances upon request of your faculty. You cannot just say, oh, I was sick and I couldn't submit the assignment. And then your professor asks you for the doctor's note or anything, and you don't have anything because you were sick, but you decide that just staying home will be fine. That's not how things works. If you're saying I'm sick, you need to demonstrate somehow that you were sick. Or if you're facing any other issue, you need to demonstrate somehow that you're facing that situation. So it's very important to always try to document any way you can. Let's say that you were on the way to the college and then the TTC has an accident and it stops in the middle and there's no way to commute to the college. Take some photos, take a video, try to document what is going on, because if you are late for the class and you are not able to make it to the test, it's going to be very hard unless you have very good documentation for your faculty to allow you a second chance to submit, to take a test or to make an exam or anything like that. If you did not meet assignment or testing days, you might receive a 0 for that part of the course grade. So that's why it's very important that you know and you communicate to your professor timely. And this thing that is popping in here that it says use their college email for all correspondence with their faculty. This is very important, and that's the reason why it is like popping like that, because we have heard several times students saying I sent an email to my faculty and they never replied to me, and we want to address this with the faculty. The faculty says I never received an email from this student. When we indicate about the situation, we get to know that the student was using the Gmail or Hotmail or Outlook account, and many times those emails are flagged and filtered by the spam system, so they did not make it to the inbox of your professors. That's why it's super important to use your GVC email, activate your account, use your GVC email, because external email providers very often are being flagged by the spam system and policy. Okay, three key components for the reassessment of your work. Students have the right to request a reassessment of a test or assignment that worth at least 20% of the final grade. If you have an assignment worth in 10%, you cannot request a reassessment of that. If you have an assignment worth in 5%, 50%, you cannot request a reassessment of that. Of that. The after the reassessment of your work is made, the result could be that the grade is maintained, raised, or lower as a result of a reassessment made by the original assessor. So let's say that you submit the assignment and you say, oh no, I think that this is there's something wrong here, and you request a reassessment of your work. Your professor is going to evaluate again your work, but if they find that, oh, you know what, actually you did not complete this other part, and I was not aware that at the beginning you have even a lower mark right now, there is no way to appeal for that because they have reviewed it. Also, if after attempting to request a reassessment of your work, you still remain dissatisfied, you could go through the academic appeal process, right? Another example of this might include presentation or performances, because if you miss a presentation, of course, there's no way to reassess something that you did not do, right? Then you will need to go through the academic appeal process. Let's say that you were sick and you couldn't make it the day you have the presentation in class, so you receive a 0. But you want to appeal for that because you were sick and you want that your professor allows you the opportunity to do the presentation again. So you will need to go through the academic appeal process to be able to request that, not the reassessment of your work. The reassessment is only for work that is being done, like tests, assignments, things that are you submitting to your professor. Any other examples of things that are not like, let's say for culinary students, if you have to make a cake and you did not make it completely, you failed to complete it or whatever, it's going to be very challenging for your professor to reassess something that is not already there. The process for the reassessment of your work is going to, first of all, within 10 working days of receiving a grade or academic decision, you must contact your faculty member to arrange a meeting or to discuss your academic issue. Sometimes, perhaps you are going to meet your faculty, your professor at the end of the class, and you have a discussion, and maybe you make some agreements or you reach an agreement. We always recommend to you and to all the students to send an email after saying, hey, dear professor, thank you so much for meeting with me today. According with our discussion, according with our conversation today, I would like to clarify that this and this and this and this were the points that we discussed, and this is the agreement we reached. Because many times you discuss something with your faculty in person. This is a verbal, oral conversation. There's no way that you can demonstrate that you have that conversation with your faculty because you are not able to record interactions with your professor without their consent. So if perhaps you are having a conversation with your faculty and you ask them, hey, do you mind if I record this for my records? And they agree for have this conversation being recorded, that's fine. But you cannot record by any means to anybody without their consent, right? There's a policy about this, a very serious policy within the college, and you cannot record or make videos or without informing the person who is being recorded. So it's very important to always send an email with a summary of the conversation. So you have the tracking of the conversation and also a supporting documentation in case that eventually you need to appeal for this grade. Secondly, you have 5 working days. Your faculty have 5 working days after your request to respond to your inquiry and set up a meeting. It's always advisable to have a meeting with your faculty because verbal communication could be way better than email back and forth. But if eventually that's not feasible, you can also use the email as a communication mean. And finally, within 10 working days of the student's request, the faculty member should met with you to discuss the issue. So you have 10 days, 10 days to communicate with your faculty. Your faculty has 5 days to reply to you, and then you will have 10 days to meet with your faculty and solve this issue. If a resolution is reached, the academic decision will be notified and that would be the end of the process. Or if the resolution is not reached and you still remain dissatisfied with the academic decision, you could file a stage 2 academic appeal. Uh, it's very important to clarify that most of the time, the best approach when it comes to academic concerns is to be assertive and to communicate in a respectful manner with your faculty. If you go there with a aggressive behavior, being rude, being disrespectful with your faculty, you are never going to achieve good results. So if you really want to, solve the situation, find resolution, respect, assertiveness, is always the best way to address your academic concerns with anybody within the college. So that's the end of the presentation about the policy itself. Here's just some basic information about our program. We support students facing academic issues and who wants to either challenge a grade because they perceive it's unfair or because you were facing a situation that really prevents you to perform well in your academics. We help you navigate policies, build skills, self-advocacy skills, and our services are independent from the college and free, which is very nice. We also provide services in different languages like Mandarin, Spanish, Visayan, Tagalog, and Hindi. We have a in-person drop-in hours from 10 to 2 p.m. at each one of the main campuses. That's St. James, Casaloma, and Waterfront. And from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you can send us an email or call to the hotline, and we are going to be able to assist you with any of your academic concerns. Finally, I would like to invite you to the upcoming webinars and workshops. We have one scheduled for October 16 about the educational concerns and complaints policy. If any time you would like to raise a formal complaint, and we will having on October 30th the academic appeal policy. If I hope no, but if you're finding yourself failing a grade and you need to appeal, this will be a good opportunity to know how to do that. I really appreciate everybody being part of this activity today. I hope that you all are willing and interested in taking part of the end of the semester knowledge contest. We are going to update this information in our website. These recordings will be available soon for the students who missed previous workshops or webinars because you will need all this knowledge to be able to participate of the contest at the end of the semester. This is the knowledge contest. We are going to have questions related to the academic policies and to the topics that we have been addressing during the semester. So if you have missed previous sessions, I would recommend to you to take a look to those video recordings later. And that will be it from us today. Thank you very much to everyone, and I hope you have a lovely day. If you have questions, if you want to know more about it, or if you need could we get these PowerPoints that, yes, if you share your email with me, anything, maybe I can send you this through email and I can send you a PDF with these slides. Uh, Send me an email to academicsupport@scgpc.ca and I will going to be able to send you the presentation. If anybody has any other question, please use the email. We are always replying to the students within 1 to 2 days. So don't hesitate to contact us anytime. Okay, everybody, have a lovely day. See you around. Bye-bye.